Hello everybody, this is Hopkins with Baltimore Heritage, and we're back with another of our 5-Minute Histories videos. And today I'm in the southeast corner of Patterson Park, and we're going to talk about the enormous monument behind me, the Pulaski Monument. If you're like me and you come across a monument you don't know about, at least 3 questions pop into your head. First, who was this person? Second, what did they do to deserve a monument? And third, why is the monument here in this particular spot on planet Earth and not somewhere else? I think lately I've also been asking myself a 4th question: who erected the monument? Sometimes it seems we can tell as much about the person or people who erected the monument from the monument itself as we can about the person they're honoring. So let's jump in. Who was Casimir Pulaski? He was born in 1747 to a wealthy family in Warsaw, Poland. He joined the army at a young age in his teens, and in his 20s he joined another group called the Bar Confederation. The Bar Confederation believed that the Polish king was a puppet of Russia and worked, sometimes clandestinely, to weaken the influence of Russia in Poland. By the 1770s, Pulaski feared for his life and knew that he had to leave his country. That he did. He went to France. When he left, he was tried in absentia and sentenced to death. I think that goes under the headline banner of "Don't Turn Back Now," and that he didn't. While he was in Paris, he got recruited by 2 folks who I know you'll know. One was Benjamin Franklin, and the other was the Marquis de Lafayette. They saw a good soldier in Pulaski, and they saw a rising leader. And they convinced him to volunteer with the Continental Army that had just begun a war in the United States against Great Britain. When he went over, he sent a letter to George Washington. He said, "I came here where freedom is being defended, to serve it and to live or die for it." And serve it he did. He fought in the Battle of Germantown. He spent the cold winter of 1777 in Valley Forge with General Washington. In 1778, Congress recognized this rising star. They gave him a promotion, but they also gave him a unique title, Commander of the Horse. And they told him to go out and form what is known now as America's first cavalry unit. And where did he do it? He did it right here in Baltimore. The cavalry unit was headquartered here, and he recruited largely from here. So we in Baltimore can lay claim to being there at the groundbreaking for the cavalry of the United States. So maybe that answers the 3rd question of why is the monument here. Pulaski, unfortunately, did not make it through the Revolution. He died of mortal wounds that he suffered at the Battle of Savannah. But his heroism and his patriotism for America lived on almost immediately as his colleagues began singing his praises. The poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote a poem to him, the Hymn of the Moravian Nuns at the consecration of Pulaski's banner. Earlier in the war, Pulaski was in Moravia, Pennsylvania, and apparently some unruly soldiers were harassing the nuns that lived there. He came to their defense. The nuns were so thankful that they made him a silk banner that he wore into battle ever since then, and the poem commemorates that occasion. His death is somewhat of a mystery. Some people thought he was buried in Charleston, but there was no body. There was a commemoration, but no body. Some people thought that he was buried at sea. Some people thought that he went out to sea and then came back to a little island town called Thunderbolt and was buried there. Nobody was really sure, but in his sort of grand tour of America after the war, the Marquis de Lafayette laid a cornerstone for a memorial of Pulaski in Savannah, but there was still no body. The body showed up in 1853, I believe, when someone found the remains of a human being, a soldier, on a ridge outside of Savannah, and interred it at the monument. But there were still some skeptics about whether that was really Pulaski. It took another 100 years. In 1993, a group of scientists spent 8 years doing a DNA analysis. They exhumed the body and did a DNA analysis and concluded that indeed it was Pulaski's. But people were still maybe not super convinced. And it took until 2019 when the Smithsonian Institution conducted another DNA analysis. They apparently used mitochondrial DNA DNA from a great-grand niece of Pulaski's. And they also concluded that the body at the monument in Georgia was Pulaski's. But they also found something surprising. They found that Pulaski had the pelvic structure of a female as well as the facial structure of a female. Their hypothesis is that he had a medical condition that is rare but happens, that in the womb a person has female chromosomes but also high levels of testosterone. And they surmised or hypothesized that he was known as what's called intersex. Maybe future research will determine that, but maybe we should just leave Pulaski alone and celebrate him for the defense of liberty that he did here in the United States. All right, so now we're turning to the last question of who erected the monument. And let's start with a quick word about Baltimore's Polish community. In 1880, 1% of Baltimore, all 563 people, could trace their origins back to Poland, but their numbers began to rise. In 1891, we got our first Polish language newspaper, Polonia. By 1920, we had 11,000 Polish folks living in Baltimore, and by 1940, we had 34,000, 15% of our population. And a lot of those folks were rightfully proud of their forefather, Pulaski, and his role in the American Revolution. Things got serious for a monument in 1929 when former Mayor James Preston agreed to lead the Baltimore Pulaski Committee. They had a big dedication in 1929, sort of a ceremonial kickoff, complete with fireworks that apparently mimicked the fireworks at the Battle of Savannah, where Pulaski died. But the stars just would not align. During the Depression, they had put the money they raised in a bank called Park Bank that failed. They had to start over again. During World War II, they couldn't get the bronze to make the statue because of the war effort. And after World War II, inflation increased the price by $20,000, and they had to go to the city and the state to fill the gap from what they'd been able to raise. The designer of the monument, when we got it, was Hans Schuler, a fantastic sculptor, maybe Baltimore's most preeminent sculptor. And it was finally arrived here on Pulaski Day. And yes, there is a Pulaski Day since 1929 when Congress authorized it. In 1951 is when the monument was erected. If you're curious, it's called bas relief, which is a style of artwork where the sculpted part of the artwork rises out of the uniform background. Comes from the word, and I'm going to butcher this, but comes from the word relevo, which in Latin means to raise. So relevo, relief, art raising out of the background. The sculpture depicts Pulaski leading a cavalry charge and has the following inscription on it: Brigadier General Count Casimir Pulaski, hero of the Revolutionary War, father of American cavalry. And since its erection, it's been the center of Baltimore's own Pulaski Day celebrations since 1951. So I'm going to conclude and suggest maybe come on down, take a walk around this park, take a look at this really beautiful piece of artwork, and think about the Polish immigrant who fought so valiantly in the defense of liberty and democracy. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.